Winning at sports and at sports broadcasting means changing things up.
Just like La Quinta Inns and Suites is changing up their look.
A renovated lobby that's so contemporary it even makes Golic look cool.
Yes, it does. And a totally updated fitness center that even has Wingo feeling like a workout.
I'm ripped. Plus plenty of comfortable spaces to hang out.
Yep, this La Quinta look definitely has a vibe of victory.
So you can just relax, refresh, and get ready for your next big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
Good Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News as Australian Open coverage continues over on ESPN2. And when that is finished today, we will hop over to ESPN2 on the TV side. But we're here with you through the magic of radio for all 4 hours. Glad you're with us. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Trey Wingo, Mike Golic, and the Lumberjack is here. If you're watching us on ESPN News, Mike Golic Jr. apparently just got back from chopping some wood.
Yeah, you know, the Brawny Paper Towel Man and I just finished up our presentation at the annual conference of balding white men, so it was a good time.
I don't think the Brawny Paper Towel guy is balding.
I mean, he's bald. He's come on home. I understand that. That's been the battle cry from Bomani Jones for me for a while now. And at one day I'll listen. Is he really not bald?
No,
I was thinking of Mr. Clean.
Right away, this is a terrible start.
The Brawny Paper Towel Man is a rugged looking.
And
he is extremely hirsute.
He is handsome.
And he's got hair like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quite honestly.
I can't decide. We're looking at the pictures right now. I can't decide if I like mustache Brawny Paper Towel Man better or clean shaven.
A couple different, but yeah, you were thinking of Mr. Clean, the clean. When are you going to shave your head? When is that going to happen?
When are you going to go full Van Pelt?
When it's ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not ready to be publicly mistaken for Van Pelt and end up on his segment on on the late Sports Center. That's going to be a humbling moment for me as a 28-year-old.
And I must say, as someone, we're very close to the same age. Your inventory is impressive.
Strong.
The two people that I've known that are my age or close to it that have the best inventory are you and Stink.
Yeah.
I mean,
some good hair.
That's some solid hair. Does that bother you at all? Because his inventory is strong, and clearly that was not passed along.
The comparison bothers me more than anything because every time we're together, and listen, I mean, like I'm sure you and Chappie love when you guys can do things together, and people like to document it with pictures. The problem is anytime the picture ends up anywhere public, I always get the comment, "Why do you look older than your dad?" Yeah. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I didn't choose this life. I didn't wake up one morning and said, "You know what would be cool? My
male
late
pattern
20s?
Baldness would be awesome."
You know what would really help me with the ladies in Central Connecticut, which is already a bustling metropolis for singles? Let's start going bald. Yeah. That seems like a great idea.
Wow, boy, we got going off of Mr. Negative, didn't we?
That escalated quickly, as they said. I did not see that coming.
Somebody needs a break already.
Sorry, you guys can't tell. This is deeply personal.
Yeah, you think? I think you're handling it really well.
Well, it's all my fault. I poked the bear.
You really did.
Kind of like the Jacksonville Jaguars poking the bear with the Patriots. Just wanted to get the reaction out there.
Blood's flowing early, that's for sure.
It is. Well, listen, it's hump day. We got to find a way to get through this, to get closer and closer to Championship Sunday in the NFL. And here are some of the guests we've got coming up for you today. Lane Johnson of the Eagles, they're all-pro right tackle, will join us. And, of course, he was one of the instigators of the dog mask.
He wore the dog mask. Chris Long, did you hear? They sold out on Amazon. It was restocked, and they're going to sell out again.
How great is that?
I can't wait to see all the dog masks coming up this weekend.
For those that don't understand the story, the Eagles, despite being the number one seed, are going to be an underdog for the second straight week. They were an underdog against Atlanta, and now Minnesota comes. They're an underdog there. So they're like, hey, we were 13-3. We have the number one seed. We were the best team in the NFC, all year, and now we're the underdogs. Fine. So they're embracing the underdog scenario. My only hope is that when Lane joins us at 7:05, that he's doing the interview while wearing the dog mask.
Be a little muffled, though, wouldn't it?
I'm all right with that.
I'm all right with that. My only hope is that we could somehow barter. I will donate any amount of money to any charity he chooses if he plays one snap with the dog mask on.
Probably not going to happen.
That's fine. I can dream.
Good thought, though.
It is, and it's a good way for you to look like you're really caring and giving when you know there's no way
it's not
going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Listen, I'd say the Stugatz is strong and all.
That's not a humble brag, but it's certainly a way to get around actually having to pay money. So I respect that. Damian Woody will join us in studio at 8:30. Adrian Wojnarowski, our ESPN NBA insider, will join us with more details about the Breachgate with the Clippers.
The investigation that's going on now.
Yeah, there is an investigation.
The hammer's going to come down hard.
Of course
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
With some of the Rockets did get back into the Clippers locker room by using Chris Paul's secret access as a former Clipper, knowing how to get in there through a back channel.
Wow.
And by the way, Chris Paul's the head of the NBA Players Association.
Yes, he is.
Isn't he right? So there's going to be some ramifications.
Yeah, that's
there.
probably not something he should be leading the charge to, right?
Probably not the best look in all this. I enjoyed J.J. Redick, another former Clipper, said, I feel like I need to do an emergency podcast and explain to everyone the inner workings of the passageways in the Staples Center. So we've got everyone coming out of the woodwork to give us the in-stadium diagram of the back channels there.
Did not know that was going to be a thing this week.
Nope.
Sometimes you just wake up and things fall in your lap. And then at 9:30, the new head coach of the Oakland Raiders, John Gruden, will be here.
Be good to talk to him. First time talking to him on the show as a coach again, and I'll be interested. You know, obviously trying to bring the Raiders back. They were almost there 2 years ago, but I wonder how long he's wanted to come back to coaching and was just waiting maybe for the right situation, and this obviously presented itself. That to me will be interesting because every year his name was brought up, but I wonder when he really started thinking, I want to get back into this.
I think every year that he's been beating college quarterback prospects with pool noodles at the FFCA, when you're down there and you've made that your niche where you get to bring these kids down and beat them with pool toys, I feel like that's a clear cry for help that I really still want to be doing.
Want to get back on the field, huh? Yeah.
Well, it seems like with all those guys, it's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
I mean, Herm, was out forever. And I remember him saying one day to me, Trey, I just want to feel the grass under my feet again.
I was surprised a guy like Jimmy Johnson never had gotten back into it. I thought he would, but he didn't. And, you thought after a certain amount of time they would just say, well, I've been too long out of it, not ready to do it anymore. And I thought Herm and Gruden were kind of getting into that area, but obviously not, since they're both coaching right now.
Yeah, when Eric Mangini was doing NFL Live with us, and he was enjoying it, and he was talking about how he's with his kids, and it's great to see them every night and go to bed, blah, blah. And then he went somewhere, and he was doing some coaching with somebody, he had the clicker in his hand. And he said, Trey, I felt like it was the missing finger that had been out of my hand, having that clicker back and forth. So it's like he was jonesing for a hit. You know what I mean?
Well, Gruden now gets to see his son, who works, I believe, in the strength staff with the Washington Redskins. Yeah. So he sees him on the sideline all the time, and I'm sure gets some sort of envy in that as he's hearing stories from inside the building. And
Deuce Gruden.
You start to feel a little bit left out. I mean, there's no feeling quite like being in it, and I'm sure as plugged in as John still is in NFL circles through that time, there's no substitute for being on the inside of the machine.
Oh, when he finally gets to sit in the big seat again, that had to feel really good for him.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to talking to John. Obviously, there's a lot to get into with him, with that transition and what it means to him, what the plan is, because the expectations are high, like his new tax bracket.
Yeah.
So
hero at the bank.
Those come with expectations.
You know what? The old tax bracket wasn't too
shabby either. But you know what? The higher the better in that scenario. So good for John. We're looking forward to talking to him. That'll be 9:30 Eastern. John Gruden will join us. But let's start, as we do most days, with...
It's time for... Off the Top.
Whether you like it or not, it's just beginning.
With Golic and Wingo.
All right, we start in college basketball. Kansas State defeated Oklahoma and Trae Young. The fourth-ranked Sooners fall 87-69, handing the program its largest loss this season.
Yeah, we know the monster year that Trae Young has been having, but he had 12 turnovers yesterday, the most in a game in Big 12 history, the most by any player since 2015. He did have 20 points, but he had just 6 assists. Oklahoma's 0-3 this season when Young has 6 or fewer assists, and 14-0 when he has 7 or more. So still got his points, but a high turnover game for him.
Interesting stat, though. This could have actually been worse. His first 2 turnovers led to 4 Kansas State points, but after that, no points off his final 10 turnovers. Right. So just a guy that it looked like over the course of that game got worn down. Really sloppy effort overall from Oklahoma in that game. One brief stumble and a bump in the road for them, but still nonetheless some stuff that is very correctable to go forward with.
Yeah, it definitely is. And Trae Young, listen, it's not like this was a one game, the amount of turnovers was a lot, but he's averaging a Division I high 5.2 turnovers per game. The last player to average at least that many turnovers for a season, you're going back to 2006, 2007, Iowa State's Mike Taylor. So listen, his usage though is one of the highest that's been in years.
Yes.
So when that's going to happen, he's going to score points, he gets assists, he's going to turn the ball over. You take some of the bad with the good when the good is that good.
His good clearly outweighs the bad. And every once in a while you have to remind yourself, he's an actual freshman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How about it?
You see him play so well, and you think he's, a senior. Of course, if he was a senior, he wouldn't be in college the way he's playing.
That's exactly right.
I mean, this one-and-done era. But you have to remind yourself, oh, my God, this kid really is only a freshman. Look, the turnovers, I'm sure they'll fix. It was a bad night. He'll move forward.
Happens.
But every once in a while, Trae Young appears to be human, and we certainly saw that last night.
Off the top.
Meanwhile, speaking of inhuman, how about the role Anthony Davis is on, right? Had the huge game in the comeback win over the Knicks. Now 45-16 Tuesday as the Pelicans won in Boston to snap the Celtics' 7-game winning streak.
Yeah, he had that amount, at least 45 points and 15 rebounds for the second straight game. Second time in his career, he's had at least 45 points and 15 rebounds in back-to-back games. Back-to-back games, NBA history. The others that have done it, Charles Barkley, Elgin Baylor, Walt Bellamy, Will Chamberlain, Moses Malone, Bob McAdoo, and they all have something in common. Every one of them is in the Hall of Fame.
That's a good list to be on.
Listen, Anthony Davis, the biggest question to me, and I'm sure to a lot of people, where is he going to end up when he leaves New Orleans? Because nobody thinks he's going to stay there forever. He's not one of those guys that complains and says, I want out of here to where he may get out, so why would you get rid of him if he's not going to? But you wonder if that shelf life's going to end there with what they're trying to do and not being able to get to the top of that conference, and he'll end up being somewhere else.
Yeah, we all sort of wondered what it might look like with the Twin Towers there when they brought Boogie Cousins over from Sacramento, if that might spark something in this day and age where small ball had been such the norm. But Anthony Davis really does feel like one of those forgotten power pieces as we talk about this constant shuffling of the league's best players to counteract what's going on in Golden State. He feels like a guy that's been underutilized in that conversation. You understand that's been contractual, so when it does finally come up, that could be one of those potential breaking point moments where you see someone able to shift the balance of power enough to maybe challenge Goliath.
Yeah,
he's only 24.
That's the amazing thing.
We
right?
sit there and talk
feel
about,
like he's been around forever.
We talk about the young guys. Who do you want? Joel Embiid, the big guys out there right now. He's a Karl Anthony Towns. So wait a minute, Anthony Davis only 24 years old, but he got nicked up early on, so you wondered about the injury part of his career, but he's 24.
Yeah, Giannis is 20, 21.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy how
ridiculous.
young these guys are.
In a small ball league, these compelling young bigs.
Yeah. I mean, just again, the last two games, 93 points, 33 rebounds combined.
It's amazing.
That's a pretty good. It's a pretty good 2-game stretch, and you're right. He will be the interesting piece because he's not like a lot of the other stars in the NBA that put everything on Instagram.
Right.
He's about none of that. He's about just playing ball. And some people say that's why he's not a bigger star,
right? Because
he doesn't do it. But you could make the case he is as good as anybody in the league.
Without question. Without question. And that doesn't, like you said, bring a lot of attention to himself. Boy, wouldn't that fit well in a place like San Antonio?
There you go.
Oh, God,
Look at you just throwing that little matzo ball out there.
I just kind of threw it out
Sprinkle that one in there. That's a place that would welcome a unibrow of that caliber.
Just a little thought bomb there by Senior throwing that one out there.
Off the top.
Well, we continue on Off the Top. The Lakers likely going to be without Lonzo against the Thunder this evening on ESPN as he recovers from a sore left knee.
Listen, the team overall, we know not doing very well, sitting at 15-28 right now. Lonzo Ball had a tough start to his career from, in the first 25 games, averaged 8 points, just 32% shooting, but in the last 11, averaging 13 points, 42% shooting, a lot better, and they're 0-7 without him. He's, going through some injuries, though, had the shoulder miss some time, now has a knee. We'll see how much time he's going to miss. He's not going to win. So much was on him. It's going to be the rookie. He's not going to win Rookie of the Year. There are other rookies out there who are playing better than him.
Even on his team, maybe.
Yeah, it's exactly what Kyle Kuzma and what he's doing, who's scoring, what hasn't been affected, whether Lonzo's been on the court or off the court. But certainly from the team aspect, because, he's not a big scorer, but he certainly can dish that ball around and help his teammates.
Well, yeah, we kind of do this with LeBron when we talk about the MVP case all the time, but we use when he's off the court what the team looks like. And 0-7 with Lonzo off the court speaks to something, and you wonder if it's just the changing way that we view the point guard position now, to where Lonzo plays a little more like the traditional point guard. You mentioned Kyle Kuzma, whose points don't drop off that much, but efficiency goes way down without Lonzo, a guy who's proved a capable distributor, but's not putting up the points that, Steph Curry and the guys that we've seen in the modern day point guard role have really done. So it's interesting the lens we judge him through because of what the position has looked like now.
Well, and everything everything else that goes along is sort of part of that process with him.
Yeah, oh, by the way.
Yeah. So there's more to that, as we've all found out so far this season. But again, it'll be on ESPN this evening, the Lakers and the Thunder.
Off the top.
And in sort of what is the opposite of what's been a trend in college football, how about Stanford's Bryce Love saying he's going back to the farm to play for his senior season?
Yeah, a guy who rushed for over he's the first draft-eligible player, FBS history, to rush for at least 2,000 yards and then return the following season. He rushed for 2,118 yards. And everybody has their reasons for what they want to do. You know, Peyton Manning went back to school. There are plenty of guys that have gone back to school.
Matt Barkley at USC
they want to be at school. They want to finish something there, whatever reasons that they have. But I know one of the things that he can improve on, he was ranked, 20th on Mel's big board? You want to improve that, and I'm going to tell you where. And you know the running backs of today, Mike. He rushed for over 2,100 yards. He had 6 receptions. They need to work that into the offense, make that part of his game. It not only, I think, will help Stanford, but it certainly will help his draft stock to go even higher. Not that that's Stanford's responsibility to do, but I think for the good of their offense, that's the biggest thing he needs to work on in the offseason, is because there's a reason he wasn't out there. So he's got to make it a reason to put him out there to catch the ball.
Well, yeah, and it's not like it's something that's foreign to their offense. Right. I mean, that was a huge part of it with Christian McCaffrey there and all the all-purpose records that he broke. So you know that if it's something he's capable of, it's something that they can work into the offense. And listen, for him, 20th on the big board there, we understand this is a deep and talented running back class. Right. So you look at next year and no Saquon Barkley, no Darius Geis, no any of those names that he had to potentially compete with. I'm not sure what the underclass running back group looks like, but he could very easily be at the front of it in a time where running backs are going in the first round again.
Exactly right. Yep.
Well, that's the interesting thing here is that does he really, because the wear and tear situation with running backs is always a concern, right? That's the big issue.
Especially at Stanford.
Right. By the way, I would want to never leave Palo Alto.
Yeah.
You guys have been there, right? I mean, it's just
it's beautiful. He had, by the way, wear and tear, he had 263 carries this past year, and certainly he'll get I would say he'd get that again coming up next year. Obviously, he had one because McCaffrey was there the year before, but so he'll get another big load of carries and hopefully 20, 30 some catches as well, and become that'll become more an efficient part of his offense.
Yeah, and he's the third player, by the way, in Mel's top 20, including those 2 defensive players from Clemson, Christian Wilkins and Farrell. Clellan Farrell to go back into the draft.
Oh, boy, for
Wilkins,
huh?
Wilkins, by the way.
That Clemson defensive line brings back 3 All-Americans.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. By the way, Bryce Love has had a lot of winning moments at Stanford, as you guys have talked about, and hopes to have more next year. And winning moments brought to you by La Quinta Inns and Suites. Book at LQ.com and win at business. Okay, so that was off the top. And then there's this interesting story, guys, that sort of came out this week in the NFL. Obviously, the Steelers fell short of what everyone thought was going to be a rematch with the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game. And then the story on Pro Football Talk came out that some of the limited partners, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have no say in ownership.
Right, they don't have any power in that, right.
Are sort of leading a charge to talk to Art Rooney, who they have a pipeline to him, the owner of the Steelers, that they think Mike Tomlin's time at Pittsburgh is up. And perhaps there should be a change at the head coaching position. Mike Tomlin was asked yesterday, and you do these post-mortem press conferences when your season is over. He was asked about retaining some of his assistant coaches. Here's what he had to say.
I don't know where these roads are going to lead. Some conversations need to be had. Some contracts are up, some contracts aren't. I'm not ready to discuss that at this point. Part of that, gaining that understanding, is those conversations and so forth. So you'll hear about them as they unfold, I'm sure, if there's anything to be heard. But not there yet, no.
So a whole lot of nothing right there as far as what's going to happen. As he said, there's some coaches' contracts are up. Todd Haley is one of those, and there are many that I think
the
offensive coordinator, right, that Todd Haley will be out on an offense that was 3rd in the league in scoring, and in a playoff loss did put up 42 points. So it's going to be interesting where that goes. It seems to me there's more questions about some of the decisions that are made, and those decisions come more from the head coach.
When you say decision, you mean like game management?
Situational
football.
Onside kicks, things like that. Situational football, where it comes from the head coach. But it does seem like it's going to, do you want to use the term scapegoat, for Todd Haley in this thing? But these limited partners, this group, they're pointing it at Tomlin and saying, we want to change there.
And you can understand it, and that's all well and good, but we kind of know how this story tends to work. Like Todd Haley, again, it's not like you ever campaigned for someone to lose your job, but you understand the way these things work. And when there seems to be fissures of that sort of death rattle for a staff, maybe it's usually, all right, we move some of the coordinators around. You show you're willing to change. With Todd Haley, it was a guy that came in and there was friction in the beginning with him and Ben Roethlisberger. People wondered back in 2012-13 when he came on how that marriage would work at all. And it's survived in that because of the immense talent of that offense. And I guess the reason that you're seeing a guy judge this harshly, because Mike Tomlin's never finished below 500 as a head coach with the Steelers. He's won double-digit games each of the last 4 seasons. But when you've got as much talent on the roster, especially offensively, as they do, you're judged by a different standard.
Well, look, that is the situation, because in that AFC Championship game, there are a lot of questions. For example, when they were down by a score and they went for the onside kick instead of kicking it away when they had 2 timeouts in the 2-minute warning.
And Tomlin said he basically, for lack of a better term, didn't trust his defense to be able to make the stop, so he wanted to get the ball.
Which is such a bizarre foreign concept to say in Pittsburgh.
I
understand.
It is, because look at the score.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
But, and then they not only did they do the onside kick, which put Jacksonville in field goal territory, which essentially sealed the game when they kicked that field goal, but they also didn't use the timeouts, I didn't think, correctly, in the sense that they let them run one play and then they let them run 12 seconds off the clock before using that timeout that would have stopped it and had more time. And if you could stop them on third down, which they did, to give them more time on the back end with that last timeout. And then the 47-second sequence at the end of the game, that seemed a little crazy. But understand one thing. Tide changes very slowly.
Yes, it
Pittsburgh.
does.
This is one of my favorite stats of all time.
It's a good one.
You want to talk about stability with a franchise, okay? Since 1969, there have been more popes, 4, than Steelers coaches, 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so, popes have that seat as long as they are alive, or as long as they want it, okay? So the idea that we have had more people in charge of the Catholic Church since 1969 than Steelers coaches, I don't think Mike Tomlin's going anywhere.
Yeah.
Now, it's an interesting discussion about whether or not there are things that need to improve with situational football, which is the pinnacle and what the Patriots do, and they do it better than anybody. But I don't think you're going to see Mike Tomlin go anywhere.
I don't either. I think you'll see some coaching changes. They may lose their O-line coach, Mike Munchak, by virtue of him going to be a head coach somewhere else. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
Again, 4 popes, 3 Steelers head coaches since 1969. There are some issues that they need to work out, but in the long run, these guys that are trying to make this change have no say. They don't. It's eventually, they don't have any.
Just their opinion.
It's just their opinion, and they're voicing it to Art Rooney.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. All right, so here we go. We're doing this again.
It's time to try Trey.
And that about sums it up.
I really hate this stuff. Anything that has to do with, you have a name in a show, in a national show, and if we do anything that involves you, you don't like it.
Well, I know that your name is first for a reason.
But your name is in the show. It's in the show.
It's small print.
No, it's not.
It's small print.
It's not small print.
It's just small print.
Okay.
You're the. I'm just, look. You know those little like fish that glom onto bigger fish to clean their teeth.
Yeah,
that's what I am to you, big guy. I'm just hanging on to you by a thread.
Got a real horrible visual going on right now. I'd like you to move on.
I'll just ride that train as long as you'll have me. Yeah. Little Ramore, I'm just stuck on you. All right, here we go.
Oh, God.
Jer Bear, the Bitmaster extraordinaire, put these questions together. It's going to be Trey or nay. Do I agree with this, Trey, or do I say nay, it's not true? You ready? Here we go. Here's the first one.
The Patriots have the easiest road to the Super Bowl of all time. Trey or nay?
I'm going to say nay, because I do believe Jacksonville is a lot better than the perception of Jacksonville for a lot of people. I get it. I mean, if the Patriots are going to go to another Super Bowl, they're basically just going through the AFC South.
Right.
Okay. The Tennessee Titans and then the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I don't think, and I think you agree with me, I don't think this game is going to be easy at all. Jacksonville doesn't know, and they don't care. And sometimes that makes you very dangerous, and also they're very good.
I'm completely nay on this. I mean, I get it with Tennessee. All right, Tennessee scores first, and New England rattles off the next 35. They've done that before, certainly at times. But no way, this Jacksonville team, and I know our own Bill Polian, and I understand what Bill is saying, is, hey, you know what, this this organization's got 5 trophies. You don't want to poke the bear if you're Jacksonville. And I'm Jack. Do what you do, man.
Right. Be yourselves.
You.
Yeah.
You talk. They've been talking the talk and they've been walking the walk. I think they match up really well with New England. So in no way, shape, or form do I think this is the easiest road to the Super Bowl of all time for the Patriots. No.
And the other thing, too, if Jacksonville stopped talking, it would be like a quarterback who was very quiet and reserved and then tried to be all boisterous. No.
Don't be something you're not.
Your teammates would sniff that out in a second.
Exactly right.
Right? So be who you are. Okay. Here's the next one. You ready?
Yep.
Todd Haley should return as the offensive coordinator of the Steelers. Trey or nay?
Well, the question there is should, and that's the key word. I actually think Trey, he should return, but I don't think he's going to.
Yeah.
Because, again, if you didn't see the story, it was out there on ProFootballTalk.com that some of the partners of the Steelers that have no ownership vote.
Right.
I mean, they don't have any power.
They have no juice at all.
They have none, but they have expressed their disinterest and how upset they are with the way things went in the playoff game. And really the last couple of years, they feel like the Steelers have underachieved under Mike Tomlin, and they're upset with some situational football, which they have a right to be upset with. But Mike Tomlin's not going anywhere. And if someone goes, it might just be Todd Haley. So I'm going to say Trey, he should return, but I don't think he will.
I think I agree with you. I mean, Haley's contract is up, so if it wouldn't be fired, it just wouldn't be renewed.
Right.
Yeah. Listen, for the regular season, they were 3rd in the league in scoring. And I know a lot of people will say, well, with the offense they have and the firepower, they should be. 3 Pro Bowlers on the line and then the killer beats. I get it. You're still 3rd in scoring. You're right up there. And in this playoff game, you put up 42.
Against Jacksonville.
You put up 42. You should be winning ball games.
Right.
So there's part of me that says the same thing now because of some of the situational things we're talking about. That's above him. That's to the head coach. Now, you want to get critical of some of the play calling, like, God forbid, you run a quarterback sneak.
Yeah.
You haven't done it since 2014. Okay, I'll go with you there.
Understandable.
But I think I would agree with you. Trey, should he be back? But nay, I do not think he will be back.
Yeah, I agree. And, Haley's one of those guys that clearly knows what he's doing, but sometimes he just tends to rub people the wrong way.
Absolutely right.
It feels like that might be a situation playing out in Pittsburgh. And again, when he got there at the first time, there was a little
friction.
tension between him and Ben. Sorry.
There you
go. There are too many horns here.
A lot of horns.
I have too many toys. See, this is why your name is first.
Well,
That's
there
why
you go.
This is why your name is first. Here we go. Next question.
This year's playoffs will change how teams view the need for a franchise QB. Trey or nay?
Yeah, that's a hard nay for me, dog.
Yeah.
Not even close. I mean, there are people out there trying to spin this narrative that you don't need a franchise quarterback. As Chandler Bing once said to Ross on Friends, stop that now. Okay? No, that's a hard nay.
A hard nay for me as well. Now, I know we have a first here for the fact that all 4 teams are in the top 5 in scoring defense.
Yep.
So, listen, if you have a great defense, like Minnesota does, like Jacksonville does, even Philly is approaching that. I think New England's is down from that, but still one of the top 5 in scoring defense. You can get away with winning. We've seen it happen before, but I'm sorry. To say this is going to teams now say, and we know what that really means is we don't need to shell out $25 million a year for our cap when we could use that money to go other places.
Now, that's a separate discussion, which is really interesting.
But if you're going to get a franchise quarterback, that's got to be part of the discussion.
Right.
Is you're going to basically be paying that. But I don't, not the most important position on the field. I don't think it's going to change a team's view to say, hey, yeah, let's not worry about the possibility of a franchise quarterback and build elsewhere. Not happening.
And I think that perception is out there because they say, well, look at the quarterbacks. You have Brady, the greatest all time, and then you have Nick Foles, Case Keenum, and Blake Bortles. It's really just about Bortles.
It really is, and it's 1 year. This is the first, and you don't start blowing stuff up because something happens for the 1 year.
No, look, the Eagles are there because of Carson Wentz, not because of Nick Foles. And if you look at the numbers, if you take the name away and look at the way he played, Case Keenum played at an elite level this year. You can pretend like he didn't, but you'd just be pretending. In 14 starts, 22 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions. Drew Brees walking in as the first ballot Hall of Famer. In 16 starts, 23 touchdown passes, 8 interceptions. Look, the defense has always been there. The Patriots had the number 1 scoring defense a year ago. The year before, Denver was the number 1 defense. Legion of Boom, a couple of years back, went to back-to-back Super Bowls with a great defense. A defense will always get you there, but don't for 1 second buy into this notion that you don't need a franchise quarterback. All right, here we go. Next question.
The Cavs should trade Brooklyn's first-round pick to improve the team this season. Trey or...
Oh, Jer Bear went Mr.
Well
Ed.
done.
Nicely done, Jerry.
Yeah.
Again, the keywords there is this season.
Yes.
Because they have to figure out what's going to be left after this season, you know? So I'm going to say nay on that one. I'm going to say that it's the responsibility of the ownership to make sure that the cupboard won't be completely bare should, let's just say, certain people decide to move on.
Okay, here's the deal. Yeah. You're asking me. You're not asking me what I think the management should do.
Yeah.
Trade anything you can to get a team that wins this year. Yeah. Now, I'm saying that as a Clevelandite, Clevelander, Clevelandite, Cleveland, whatever.
A Clevelander.
Born and raised in Cleveland. I want to see a championship.
And you don't even know what you're called.
So I just care about this year.
Yeah.
But you know what? Truthfully, from a business side, LeBron is not going to walk in there today and say, you know what? Hey, I'm staying, so let's go ahead and use that pick. Let's try and win now because I'll be here for the next few years. He's not doing that.
Nope.
So you're left to kind of wonder, what do we do? You know, do we hang on to that? So I get it from their side. From a fan side, do whatever you have to do to win a championship this year. That would be my thought process.
Yeah, you're right. But from a business side, They got to protect themselves.
I get it.
They have to protect themselves. But no, as a fan, man, do whatever you want.
Do it.
All right, we got one more. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Paul Pierce deserves to have his jersey ceremony not interrupted by an Isaiah Thomas tribute video. Trey or nay?
I'm going to say Trey, fine, whatever. I mean, it is amazing to me how this has sort of become a thing, right?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
I mean, the whole idea that somehow Paul Pierce is offended that they might have said something to a video tribute to Isaiah Thomas, and now Isaiah Thomas says, no, I want to back off and have Paul have his day, and he put it out there on Twitter. Couldn't he have just said, guys,
it's not what happens nowadays. Yeah. And for those, a quick review of this, when Isaiah Thomas first went back to Boston, he didn't start, so they were going to play the tribute video then, but they didn't. So they're going to wait till the next time. That's February 11th, and that's also the date they're retiring Paul Pierce's jersey. Paul Pierce on the jump, kind of egged on by Steven Jackson.
He was his hype
bit,
man.
Was talking about that he doesn't want to share that night, but he kept going with it.
Right.
And then that seemed a little odd there that he kept going with it, you know. And then they got into what, guy's been there a couple of years. You're getting a tribute video.
Does it really bother you that much, Paul?
I mean, this really turned into a childish thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But Isaiah, you know, I'm past why do you got to tweet this and let everybody know? That's this generation, man. Yep. That's where we are. This is social media. Everything goes out on social media, so I get that part of it now. That's what they do. But, man, this was really a ridiculous, childish situation.
It's gotten a little crazy.
Yes,
so look,
it has.
Either way, Isaiah Thomas had a good 3 years, and Paul Pierce should have his night. But the fact that it became a wrestling match.
Yeah, the little drama involved here. But so it will just be Paul Pierce getting his jersey
congratulations,
retired.
Paul.
Yes.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night. Yeah. No doubt about it.
1, 2, 3, 4. I'm a robot vacuum cleaner, so yeah, I got one gig. I suck up dirt, so pardon my inferiority complex about Geico, who does so much more. Like, not only could they save their customers money on car insurance, but they got fast and friendly claim service too, and an award-winning mobile app. Plus access to licensed agents 24/7. Who am I kidding? I can't even do corners. Uh-oh, choking hazard. Popcorn kernels.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
All right, we roll on. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, and now ESPN2. So if you're on the TV side, you can turn us on ESPN2 now as the Australian Open coverage has come to a conclusion. Australian Open's a really fun event, by the way.
Yes.
Really. And Australia, as a country, pretty darn fun.
Yeah. Put another shrimp on the bobby!
I promise to go there to never say that down there because I'm afraid they'll throw things at me.
I'm going to say that as I'm drinking a Foster's.
Which, by the way, is not an Australian beer.
I know.
Just so you know.
And
but so anyway, we're on ESPN2 now. Today is a day to celebrate.
Yes, it is.
Today we are celebrating a national treasure.
We are.
Betty White turns 96 today.
Betty White's birthday. Happy birthday, Betty.
Has anybody done? Yeah, and I'm sure this is This is the song she was dabbing to when that gif of Betty White dabbing was made.
God love her.
Is there anybody who's done the 90s better than Betty White?
And then did the 80s better than anybody in the 70s?
Insane. I remember seeing her on the Mary Tyler Moore show.
Yeah.
Okay? Back in the 70s as a kid. And she has just been... Did you ever see the movie Lake Placid?
Oh, yeah.
With the giant crocodile?
Yes.
she had some of the greatest lines.
She's fantastic.
That you wouldn't expect a woman of her age. She would have been, in the late 70s, early 80s.
Did in the movie Proposal with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah, she's great. She's a national
she's
treasure.
96.
96 today, so congratulations. Yes. Now, we weren't sure what to call someone in their 90s. Because, someone in their 70s is a septuagenarian.
Right.
Someone in their 80s is an octogenarian.
Right.
So I had to look it up. Octogenarian.
Octogenarian.
So I had to look up what you call. I sort of jokingly said, is it nonagenarian? And that's what it is.
That's what it is.
A nonagenarian.
Nonagenarian.
So, hey, Nana, congratulations to Betty White.
Birthday. But we got a couple other Nanas.
This is the best. All right, we've talked a lot about this, that Millie Wall, the 99-year-old Vikings fan, who made it to her first game at the new stadium.
Right.
This past Sunday, and was her first ever playoff game.
First playoff game. Roger Goodell was down there talking to her, gave her 2 Super Bowl tickets as well. 99.
So congratulations to her. She got to see her Vikings in the playoffs for the first time, got her first trip to the new stadium. She had been to the Metrodome, and before that she actually went to the old Metropolitan Stadium when they played outdoors in Minnesota. But that's just half the nonagenarian battle we have going on in this NFC Championship game, because 99-year-old Phil Basser of Philadelphia is a lifelong Eagles fan.
Yep.
And as an early 100th birthday present, Phil's family is taking him to Sunday's NFC Championship game at the Link. His family is hoping his presence will bring him some magic. So we have Millie versus Philly in the battle of nonagenarian football fans.
How awesome is that?
It's fantastic.
It's
fantastic.
Just fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's going to be in the 50s, so it's not going to be too cold. They should both be in suites anyway, by the way, if they want to be, if that's where they want to go.
Yeah.
By the way, when both of them turn 100, you know what they'll be called then?
Centenarians?
Centenarians.
I think the J gets out of it when you get to 100.
Centenarian.
Right? Centenarians. Yeah. And by the way, 99-year-old Phil Basser, he was born in Philadelphia in 1918, fought in World War II and the Korean War before opening his advertising company.
Wow.
So Phil Basser will be there. Now, I don't think Millie's traveling.
Right. Don't think she's
to
going
Philadelphia.
There. Right.
But she was there in Minnesota to see that epic comeback, the arguably the greatest comeback in the history of the NFL, because it had never happened before.
Right.
What do we have? 4 lead changes in the final 2 minutes?
In the final 4 minutes.
Final 4 minutes. Crazy. It was ridiculously good. So she was there to see that, and at that game, Commissioner Goodell gave her 2 tickets to the Super Bowl. So she has a chance now to go to 2 straight playoff games, her first 2 playoff games, and one of them be the first time ever that a home team is playing in their home stadium for the Super Bowl. But Phil Basser wants none of that. Phil wants to see his Eagles go back for the 3rd time.
And you know what Phil's saying?
Yeah.
Hey, Roger, where are my tickets?
Exactly.
Okay?
Hey, listen, you got one 99-year-old, you give her tickets, she's
exactly
turning 100.
Right.
I think turnabout is fair play.
I think he's got a good argument right there.
Who's going to argue with Phil?
It's exactly right.
I mean, 99 years old.
Hey, the world is yours, man.
Grew up in an orphanage and served our country twice, fighting in World War II and the Korean War. Tip of the cap to you, sir. We are excited.
Oh, I mean, I can only hope to be around at 99. Right? I got no shot.
And I
got no shot.
Neither one of us.
As I said, I'll be stuffed in on the porch.
Well, we talked about how you should be stuffed. Yeah, well, I'm seeing a picture of Phil. He's wearing his Carson Wentz jersey.
Awesome.
He's got his finger up, number 1. He's excited. So we got Millie and we got Philly in the NFC Championship game, and we'll see what happens playing it out going forward. We got lots more coming for you. Damian Woody, Adrian Wojnarowski will join us, and John Gruden. We like that guy. Still on the way. Golic and Wingo. Stay with us.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
So let's go into the immediate past. What happened the other night at the Staples Center. We like to call it Breachgate now. We love the fact that you used that word, that somehow the Rockets penetrated the defenses of the Clippers locker room and breached the facility. But there are going to be some ramifications from this discipline-wise, right?
There will be, and I think that's, the league. There's so many people to interview from the Clippers and Rockets and security. And I think, NBA security, spent all day yesterday going through this and this morning. I think, and what I reported last night was, as they're looking at this, I think Chris Paul, James Harden, The way it's being described now to me, and I think to others, is that they played more of a role of a peacemaker. I think Trevor Ariza was, I don't know if led the charge is the right way to put it, but certainly was the one making his way toward the Clipper locker room. Got in there. Again, nobody went in there to fight. Ariza didn't go in there to fight. He did want to talk to Austin Rivers especially, and Blake Griffin. But, I think the role of a lot of these guys, and what role did Rivers play, who was not in the game, who was chirping from the sideline, who was getting into it with people verbally. Blake Griffin was on the court, had been physical with people in the course of the game. Did he go out of his way to brush against Mike D'Antoni? Was Mike D'Antoni on the court? Was he out on the playing surface? Was he on the sideline when Blake brushed up against him? Those are all the things the league is still looking at now and trying to determine penalties.
Two quick things. Number one, now that there may be discipline involved, I'm sure they're all going to downplay it. Number two, I just cannot stand when somebody is not playing and they're in street clothes and they're chirping on the sideline of any sport. I think that's just ridiculous. That's just me, personal opinion there. As far as discipline, Woj, one thing you always look for in sports when they're going to discipline is maybe precedent on something like this that maybe happened that you can rely on for future discipline. Is there anything like this that they can look at and say, oh, this is like this or this is like that? Can you think of anything that is close to what happened?
There isn't. And I think that, too, remember, I think that it will probably be taken into consideration here. Again, they got into the locker room, but it wasn't as if Ariza came through the door and then charged across the room. The way it was described to me, there would have been a clear path if he wanted to just make a beeline for the locker area where the Clipper players were sitting. That didn't happen. I think he wanted really to just be heard. And I wrote this the night, in the moments after, as it was described to me by people who were in the room, that it was the classic NBA scene. I quoted someone as saying it was a classic NBA scene. No one was going to fight. And I think the fact that he went into the locker room, that the Rockets did go into the locker room, which is, I don't know if it's unprecedented, but it's rare. I think the league is going to have to, I will be surprised if there isn't a short suspension, whether it's just one game. I'll be surprised if it's only monetary, if it's only a fine.
All right, Adrian Wojnarowski with us, our NBA insider, getting up early for us on the West Coast. The other thing that's sort of been talked about this week, Woj, is a story from Dave McMenamin about the Cavs and their struggles. They've lost 4 straight, and the issue and the belief, rather, inside the locker room that the players aren't sure that this can be fixed. We've seen them struggle at the start of the season. Then they ripped off, 18 wins in 19 games against some lesser opponents, but they've really been struggling since 2-8 since Christmas Day. They've been able to hit the reset button and make it all the way to the finals the last few years. What do you think of what we're hearing about the struggles with this team right now?
Well, listen, I think this has been since the day they did the Kyrie Irving trade, this has been a diminished team. It just is. They weren't going to be better because of that trade, and they're not. And listen, I think there's 29 other teams in the league who aren't sure they're good enough to beat Golden State. And I think Cleveland's one of them. Now, Cleveland may still have the best player in the world, but remember this, too, and in LeBron James's time in Cleveland, in Miami, this is kind of the hallmark of the personality of the teams. And he feeds off of this. He feeds off of the drama and all these things. That's the personality of his teams, is sometimes that up and down, that being very emotional with how it all goes. It's not steady. It's a different personality than Steph Curry's teams have had. And so you have to, I think that's part of it too, when LeBron's leading a team, and he's thrived with that. He's found a way to make that work for him. But the drama and a lot of that stuff has played out around his groups whenever he's, wherever he's been. And I think this is part of that too.
Do you think this team, they do have a number one pick from Brooklyn, whether they use that or something else, do you think this team makes a significant move by way of trade before the season's over to make that run?
I think they try to make a move here. They're continuing to try to make a move between now and the trade deadline on February 8th. But I don't know that there's a move for them to make that puts them over the top. I don't know that, if they're looking at this clearly, that there's one player out there's one move that changes everything for them, that all of a sudden puts them on a plane with Golden State. I don't think that move exists, and I'm not sure they believe that move exists. Now, they could get better, but what the Cavs are not going to do, and what Dan Gilbert, Kobe Altman, their GM, they're not going to use that Brooklyn draft pick that they got in the Kyrie deal, which was by far the most important piece to that deal. Right. That's what they cared about the most. They're not going to use that on a player who's going to be a rental and then watch LeBron walk out the door, and then they're going to be stuck in a rebuild without that draft pick. I still think it's the odds of them using that pick in a deal are slim, and without using that pick, they don't have the assets to bring in anybody significant.
Adrian Wojnarowski with us, our ESPN NBA insider. So you mentioned there's nobody out there that you think that they could get with a trade that would bring them to compete with the Warriors. The simple question then becomes, can they get something, or can they fix the ship to get back to the finals, where a LeBron James team has been, 7 straight NBA finals? Is this team going to be able to find its way back to that level even?
I believe they are. I still think they're, like you said, we've seen this in other years, but I do think this. I think they can get to the finals. I don't think Golden State, to me, and I think to most people's standard, they're the best team by far, and that's the era we're living in. They're an historically great team, and Cleveland is not deep enough. They don't have the depth of talent right now to compete with that. And I think also, you look in the East, Toronto is much better. And I know we're talking about Boston, who's been great this year. I think this is a different Toronto team. I think this team will compete differently in the playoffs. DeMar DeRozan is having the best year of his career, and they've done such a great job in Toronto of drafting young players, developing young players, and building out a bench with them, and even some of their starting lineup. That's going to make them more formidable. So Cleveland will have a tougher road to the final than they did last year, but I think they can get it together enough to still be able to get out of the East, but they're not ready to compete with the Warriors, and I still don't see a team out there that can.
Well, speaking of that, over in the West, you have Oklahoma City currently in the 5 slot, sitting at 24-20, loaded up a bit for this year with Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. They committed to that through the year, or will they look to move a guy like Paul George?
They're still committed to it, and in talking to their front office, I mean, when they traded for Paul George, they knew that there'd come a point here at the trade deadline where they could potentially have a decision to make based on whether Paul George was going to stay in free agency, whether he'd leave. But they also knew that Paul George probably wasn't going to be decided by February 8th. One way or another, he wasn't going to be positive he was going to come back, and he probably wouldn't have ruled it out. And that's where they are right now. Paul George is open to the idea of staying in Oklahoma City, but he's going to see how this season plays out and what this team looks like and how it advances into the postseason and how this works with Westbrook and Carmelo and Steven Adams. And I think for Oklahoma City, getting back a significant package for Paul George when teams know he's really just a rental and he's headed into free agency will be difficult. And right now, that their best avenue is to continue to make a run with this team, hope they get it together, and then have the kind of postseason that makes Paul George think this can work and I want to stay.
Well, again, that's to be determined, but it certainly looks like they're going to try and make it work. Woj, we appreciate you being with us. Once again, congratulations not only on getting up early and being with us, but on the major award, as they say in a Christmas story. It's fragile, so treat it with care. Woj, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks, Woj.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
We could not be more delighted.
Yes.
To welcome in, for the first time on this show, as the, once again, head coach of the Oakland Raiders, our pal, our buddy, John Gruden. Coach, how are you this morning?
Hey, good morning, man. I love that Leonard Skinner, man. Thank you very much for that.
Come on, give me 3 steps. What's your name? That's the good stuff right there, John, as you well know.
Yes, it is.
Hey, congratulations. We're so happy for you that you're back doing what you love. John, when did you know that you had to try it again? Because everybody at some point gets that itch to scratch, and coaches tend to do it a lot. But when did you know, hey, man, I got to go back, and I got to be a coach again?
You know what, Chair? I think, honestly, it was we had the Ring of Honor event in Tampa, our Monday night broadcast, Atlanta against Tampa. I got down on the field around the old players, and I really got choked up, and I really missed being around the players, being around the game as a coach. So I think that really choked me up. That really pushed me over the edge that night, and here I am, and I'm really excited to be back with the Oakland Raiders.
That is amazing you said that. We were watching that, me and my wife on TV, and after that halftime finish, my wife turned to me and she said, he's going back to coaching. You could just tell when he put that visor on that he wanted to be on the field again. So I think a lot of people thought that as well. So for those of us that will never be a head coach in the NFL or any other sport, when you went back into the big chair again, tell us, what are the first things that you had to do?
Well, number one, you can't do everything at once. You have to take things one step at a time, and I have to hire the best coaching staff possible, Mike. Before I do anything, I have to go out and interview as many people that are interested in the Raiders as possible, and I really feel great about the staff that we have put together here. Before you start talking about plays or talking about the draft or personnel or drills you're going to run or how you're going to run training camp, you got to hire a great staff. I think you win with people, and we are really excited about the group we have assembled here, and it's going to give us a chance now to move into the next phase, which is putting in our offense, putting in our defense, getting ready for the off-season program, getting ready for the draft, but we're off to a really good start.
Well, you certainly are, and you've got maybe 2 of the most important positions filled already, your offensive and defensive coordinators. But, John, whenever I talk to coaches, and especially some that I've had to work with, whether it was you or Herm or Eric Mangini when he was here, when you're a coach, it just becomes part of your DNA. I mean, when I was working with Eric, he was talking about how great it was and the lifestyle, and he was there to put his kids to bed at night. And then he said he went to a coaching seminar somewhere and did some stuff, and he put the clicker in his hand, and he felt like it was his missing finger that had been gone from that hand for a while. Can you explain to people what it is about once you become a coach? How much it's part of your makeup, your literal physical and mental makeup of a person?
Well, you know what? I think there's a lot of teachers out there, elementary teachers, high school teachers, college professors that feel the same way. I think coaching is teaching. Coaching and, building relationship with your team, helping your players be as good as they can possibly be. My mom was a great elementary teacher. It's in our genes. My dad was a coach. You just like being part of a football team or part of an organization that's after one common cause, and that's to win. And I just feel an urgency to try to give back to the Raiders. They were a team that gave me my start, and I want to do everything I can to help this football team and every individual player have a great experience and hopefully win a championship.
And a couple about the Raiders. I mean, in all honesty, you were a little shocked and surprised. Your time ended in Oakland, correct, when you got traded to Tampa Bay?
Yeah, to put it mildly, Mike. Yeah, I got that call at 3:00 in the morning and was traded, and I wasn't looking to leave. I had 4 years here that were really exciting. I was raised by the people in the Black Hole, raised by a lot of people in Oakland. This organization, I think, really fueled my passion to be a coach. We've got 2 years left to play in Oakland, and it's going to be a very emotional time because the team is moving, as you know, to Las Vegas, and I had my third son here in Oakland, and I want to do everything I can to give these fans here in this city something to remember.
Little pro tip there, just remind us one more time that the 3:00 phone call is never good. No matter when the phone rings at 3, it's usually never a good idea, and that's when you found out you were traded. Wow.
So, and then what about the actual Raiders, the black hole, the Raider family? You know, when your introductory press conference, which was pretty darn cool, all the former players there, the greats there, and I said the Raiders do such a great job of bringing some of the former players back to work for the organization, or the family unit that they show, and the camaraderie and the backing. Just, you know, for a minute here, give it up to the Raider Nation and Raider family and what they've meant to the NFL.
Well, no doubt. It starts with Al Davis, who was a Hall of Fame owner. He had an incredible vision for this franchise, and his son Mark Davis has taken over the torch, and he has continued that with tremendous, I think, value on the tradition of this organization. And he continues to preach, and I believe it, that the greatness of this franchise is in the future. But you know, I want to include these legendary players, these Raider alumni. I want them to be a part of this organization. I remember when I was here before, I called my dad after a game, Mike. I said, "Hey, Dad, Jim Plunkett and Ted Hendricks and Jack Tatum were on our sideline today." And Cliff Branch, I saw Cliff Branch and Bo Jackson would come into meetings, and I got to meet Marcus Allen. Howie Long was here. You know, Willie Brown and Fred Biletnikoff were on my coaching staff. If you don't get excited about that, you don't like football.
No, that's very cool, and there are very few teams that have the pantheon of legendary players that could match up with the ones that the Raiders could trot out there. John Gruden with us, the new head coach, second time around with the Oakland Raiders. John, most teams don't make a change in head coach unless things didn't go well. And clearly that was the case for the Raiders this year after a 12-4 season in 2016, 6-10 this year. They missed the postseason. So what needs to change right away? What's the one thing that was the glaring weakness that you think needs to get better in 2018 for the Raiders to get back into the postseason chase?
Well, I think continuity. I think we have to have continuity. That's the number one thing I'm trying to create here. We have had different coordinators on offense. We've had different coordinators on defense. I think I'm the 10th head coach in the last, 15 years. We have not had a lot of continuity. We've had, I think, one winning season in the last 15 seasons. So I think we've got to get a system of football, a common ground of operation here that our players can develop under and our scouts can draft into. Just too much change on offense. We've had different defensive coordinators, different offensive coordinators, different snap counts. It's tough to develop any kind of success. So I think continuity is the number one thing. I think with this coaching staff that we have brought in here, hopefully will allow us to do and build on.
Talking to John Gruden, Oakland Raiders head coach, former Raiders head coach, also former coach of the Buccaneers, won the Super Bowl in 2002. As far as the current game and the teams playing this week, and one player in particular, because I saw a clip of you with him at your coach's camp with Case Keenum, the quarterback from Houston, the college Houston, when you had him there. And I loved the conversation you had with him of basically just always be ready. Always be ready. You never know when your opportunity is going to come along. I mean, that couldn't have been more prophetic for what's happening to him. And really, in the larger picture, for players overall, one you're going to coach and one certainly in Case Keenum, to make sure you put yourself in a position to be ready when you get the chance.
I think it's a great lesson for all of us. You know, I'm no different than Case Keenum. You know, I had a guy, Mike Holmgren, that believed in me, gave me a chance. And who would have thought a backup quarterback at the University of Dayton would ever be a head coach in the NFL? Someone down the road will believe in you, and you're going to get a chance. And if you're ready, you might be able to take advantage of it. And that's what I loved about Keenum. I mean, he threw for 60,000 yards in college. He was phenomenal, and he was just undersized, and he had an injury. And I think people look at him physically, and they think he doesn't have the traits and measurables that we're looking for. But, you know, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, there's a lot of quarterbacks in different sizes and shapes that are excelling at a high level. And I'm just really happy for this man. He is a great kid, and I'm rooting for him.
Well, you finished up that clip when you said, I believe in you. What did you see in his game that made you think, hey, despite the size and the injury and, you know, the spread offense and all that kind of stuff, that he really could do what he's been doing?
Well, he has a lot of arm talent. He has very good athleticism that's underrated, and he has a passion to play. His dad was a coach. This is all he wants to do. He is centered and grounded off the field. He's a very religious, humble man. He's got leadership. But when the game starts, and Golic will tell you, there are some guys off the field that seem so pure and so innocent and so great, but when they put that helmet on, he becomes a very mad, raging pit bull, and that's Case Keenum. He loves to compete, he loves to fight, and loves to scratch, and I really appreciate that about him.
So, John, you've been the head coach of the Raiders for about 10 days now. Can you tell us the number of hours you've already had watching film?
Yeah, it's been a lot. You know, Mike, it's you can tell I'm already worn out. I'm wondering, I woke up in the middle of the night at my hotel. I wondered where I was. I'm still in a blur. But we have a lot to do. We're very excited about the coaching staff. Now it's a matter of what are we going to call this formation? What are we going to call this protection? How are we going to get the left tackle to block down? We got to go through every nuance of football from the very beginning, and I am having a blast.
Well, just call everything Spider 2Y banana and you're good.
You'll see the fullback in the flat at some point, Trey.
Come on, that's just like Omaha. It means everything. That meant everything to Peyton. It means everything to you. Well, and having spent time with John preparing for the draft, nobody does film better than John. John, we appreciate you being with us. It was a delight to have you on the show today. I really enjoyed our time together on the draft. We'll miss you on the draft this year, but maybe we'll get you for a satellite interview one of the 3 days. That fair?
Let's hope so. And you guys are always welcome. Come and visit, man.
Thanks, Coach. John, we appreciate it. Take care.
All right, guys.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. Make sure to subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, and to listen every weekday morning at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and the ESPN app.
Hello, I'd like to deposit this to checking.
Fate is a fickle master.
What?
The future is uncertain.
Okay, and what's my account balance?
The horizon is cloudy. I see a long, treacherous voyage filled with great peril.
Look, can I just get a deposit slip or something?
A fortune bank teller. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I see a yellow-eyed serpent and a low APR.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.